Hi, this is Nathan from Snap. Today I'm going to show you a new question feature called the Question Carousel. I'm going to jump straight in and show you a demonstration of the end result, and then we'll look at how this can be achieved. I've got a quick demo survey set up which is about a TV subscription service. A few nice features are on display here, including a couple of screen out questions. I have a pattern on my email address question. I have the drag and drop feature on display here. And then we move on to our feature for the day, which is the question carousel. So here I've got a number of statements that I'd like the respondent to either agree or disagree with. If I go ahead and respond to some of these statements, you can see it's automatically jumping to the next statement, and it works really well with some of these longer statements. For the next question, I'm using exactly the same feature, but this time I'm using images instead of statements. I can skip over questions, I can move backwards and forwards, or I can just completely jump over that section altogether. That is, of course, assuming that those questions weren't set to must answer. So let's have a look at how that's set up in Snap Desktop. I have a survey here called WebPix TV Satisfaction. Now this has been set up without the feature being activated at the moment. I scroll down to those questions. You can see I have my statements, and if I scroll down a bit further, I've got the different logos that I was displaying earlier. And these are currently set up as grid questions, so grid first, grid next, and the same with the questions above, grid first, grid next, etc. And you'll note that if I go on to the phone edition, the default setting for grid questions is actually to display these as drop-down menus to aid with the presentation on smaller devices. Let's have a quick look at how this might display on a mobile phone by default. So if I go up to the Publish button, and I'll do a preview only. So I'll just pop through to the questions that we are talking about. As you can see, my questions are now set by default to be drop-down menus. And it does work, but you can see we are running out of space a little bit, particularly with these longer statements. And if I move down to the next question, again, it is working, but there's quite a bit of scrolling involved. Scrolling down the page. So let's move back to the questionnaire design window, and we're going to turn on the question carousel feature. You can see I'm already on my statements question, but I'm going to go up to the first one, so the grid first, and we're going to show that question as a carousel. So if I just tick the show box. Under options, there's a couple of choices. By default, it will automatically advance onto the next question. So rather than me having to press the arrow, as soon as I answer the first one, it will jump to the second one, etc., etc. And I've got the option to turn on the progress count. So it will say 1 of 4, 2 of 4, 3 of 4, 4 of 4, etc. Now, this carousel feature is a formatting option, so just need to remember that I'm doing this on the phone edition. I also need to turn that feature on the tablet edition. Again, just going into options and confirming which ones I want, and also the PC and laptop edition as well. Just moving back to the mobile phone version. Personally, I would take off the drop-down menus for these because although they will work, it will actually involve the respondent having to click an extra button to drop down the menu and then selecting the answer, which we don't really need that. So for those questions, I'm going to turn off the drop-down. And if I come down to the next set of questions, Again, I'm going to turn off the drop down again. And then we're going to activate the carousel. So again, doing that on the grid first, show it as a carousel. Again, going to use those same options in there. And as before, that's formatting, so we will also format the tablet edition. And also the PC laptop edition. And that's it. I'll do a quick preview. Again, I'm actually going to do that from the phone edition, just so you can see how those changes that we've made have affected the layout. So if I go back up to publish and preview only, I'll just jump through to the questions that we're interested in today. Here we've got the more traditional drop-down menus, which is the default setting for a standard sort of grid question. And then we move on to the carousel question styles. So a really nice design feature, particularly aiding with the visual side of things on smaller devices. Really sort of helping to focus your attention. Works really, really well when you have got images or logos which you need to display. Okay, hopefully you found that useful and you can find a good use for that for your next project.